Hello everyone. I wanted to do a short video on getting a Python editor set up as opposed to just using the script editor in Maya, which you've probably discovered by now is pretty limited. So the Python editor that I prefer is called PyCharm. You can download it from the JetBrains website. That's the company that makes PyCharm. There's a community edition, and this is the one that I recommend that you use. I actually find it to be less intrusive than the professional version. If you are on campus, you might find that the professional version is already installed. I recommend that you don't use that one, that you actually download your own version of community and keep that updated as you work, because they do tend to update it quite often. One thing to note about PyCharm is if you have 2019, for example, and you this is PyCharm 2019, and you go to update it using the updater, it will not automatically update to 2020. It'll just update to 2019.1, 2019.2, etc. So you will need to download the latest versions if they have a major change. The current version is 2020.2.1. Once you hit download, just download and install it. Use the default settings. And what you're going to find when you go to, I'm going to switch over to PyCharm here. I've already installed it, so I can't go back to the initialization that you will be experiencing, but you'll find that it's going to ask you to create a project first, or to load a project. You're going to want to make a new project, and all the project is, for our intents and purposes, is just a location where we're going to have a bunch of files. Now, these files could be structured in a like meaningful, lengthy Python project way, or it can just be a collection of .py files, and that's really what I'm using. So we're going to go to the location of your project has to be, specifically, must be one of the Python paths that Maya uses. So one of the Python paths on your system. And I just use the scripts folder as my Python project, and I rarely vary from that at all. So that's going to be, I'm in, this is users, documents, Maya 2020, right? These are all the versions of Maya that I still have installed. And instead of picking a specific version scripts folder, each of these versions has its own folder. I like to use the main scripts folder that is outside of all the versions. These are dumped into your Maya folder. Anytime you install Maya, there's a folder put in there called scripts. And I'm just going to select that as my scripts folder, okay? As my project folder right there. And now you'll see we need to pick a Python interpreter. As we talked about in class, Maya's using Python 2.7. We'll talk more about that in class. So we need I want to use the Maya interpreter for this, not one of the standard 2.7 interpreters. So we're going to go down here and click on existing interpreter. I already have that selected. Yours probably won't have that. So click on existing interpreter. And then we need to navigate to the location of the Maya py.ex file. This is Maya's specific Python interpreter. And that is located in its program files, Autodesk, Maya 2020, this is the version, bin, and we're going to go all the way down here to the file called maya.py.exe. Don't confuse this with maya.exe, that is the actual Maya executable. Maya.py.exe is the Python interpreter. Okay. Once I have that selected, I'm just going to click OK. You can make that available for all projects if you want. All right. And there's another option down here, create a main.py welcome script. I don't like that, so we'll just turn that off. And now our project is ready to go. And if I press create, let's just do a new project like that. We'll open it up in this window. And this is going to bring up, I already had a file open that was in my project. And you'll see that over here in your project folder, you will have a list of all of your .py files. I have a lot in mine. You probably don't have any at this point, or just one or two. and your project is now set up and ready to go. In terms of getting this stuff over here, one of the great things about PyCharm is you can have the structure set up and you can jump to specific functions this way. Most of the scripts you're going to be creating in this class will be using just one py file for all of your script. And you're going to have a lot of functions in there. I have a couple with several hundred functions in them, which gets a little messy. And you probably want to think about breaking out into multiple Python files if you're going to be doing that. But for now, you can jump between functions. And then in the project, you can actually jump very quickly between py files. And it's going to just stack them up here on the shelf up here. And these are files you can jump between and cut and paste code between, whatever you need to do, or work on multiple files simultaneously. To set this up over here, it's initially going to be on the left. The options are up here in the view menus up here. And then these menus up here give you options as to how to shift these around left and right and what's displayed. So you can play with that. The only other thing I recommend that you consider doing is picking a font that you really like. Anytime you're working with programming, you need to work with fixed width fonts, meaning that every character has a fixed width. So if we go up to File and we go to Settings, up here in Editor, if we go down to Font, you can pick a font up here that you prefer. I'm a big fan of Source Code Pro. I also like Consolas a lot. I don't like Courier, and the JetBrains mono font that comes as a default, I'm not a huge fan of. But you can play with these, and you can also install different fixed width fonts if you like. So figure out which ones you like. This is Source Code Pro right here. And these fonts also have different sizes. I have to make this one up to 16 for it to be really useful for me. When I'm doing class demonstrations, I might actually make it 18 so it's even more legible. And I might change the line spacing as well, which is the spacing between lines, for better legibility. So pick a font that you like. Syntax coloring and highlighting is already on by default, and we'll talk more about that in class.